Good morning, everybody. This is Ben Jones here. It's another Monday morning in the coffee workshop. I thought today we would look at the AeroPress, but more specifically, I want to look at the inventor's recipe. This is the classic AeroPress recipe. It's one that if you've been following my videos, if you've been watching stuff we're posting here with Batter from Bronson, this isn't the recipe that I brew with, but this is a fantastic way to make coffee. One of the things I love about AeroPress is that it really gives that, it allows you to pursue your preferences. Joe, Brendan, Eric, good morning, everybody. Nice to see y'all joining us nice and early. I'm going to dilly-dally and let a few more folk join. So the AeroPress, it's a really fun little brewer that allows you to really highlight the preferences that you are looking for in a cup of coffee. As far as any singular brewer goes, I would argue that the AeroPress is the most versatile and the most capable for brewing different profiles to match individual flavor preferences. So, what we're going to do this morning, I'm going to use our Colombia Las Brisas, which is very readable backwards to y'all. This is one of my favorite coffees. I absolutely love coffee out of the south of Colombia. So when we have it, I tend to hang out there quite a bit. To use the AeroPress for the classic recipe, we're going to take the standard brew chamber and just going to use one singular paper filter. I'm going to lock that in to the base. There we are. We now have filter in the brewer. And I'm going to set that on top of my brew cup. I'm going to add a step that is not included in the original recipe, and that's just rinsing of the filter. I'll always taste the paper when it's in there, so I like to give it a little rinse, kind of preheat it a little bit. And let me just pour that out real quick. Thank you. All right, and then the coffee. This is ground up very fine, almost as fine as you would go for espresso. I know that it's really hard to see precisely on the camera, but it's very, very fine. It's a little clumpy. Perhaps you should be able to roll it in your fingers and kind of pinch it and have it kind of form. So the dose that I'm using, because I'm doing an original recipe, I took just one scoop of my whole beans and it came out to 17.2 grams for those following along. All right. We also get with the AeroPress this handy funnel. Put that on there, and that just helps me to not make a mess of my coffee grounds all over the counter. Let's give it a little agitation to level it out. And following Alan Adler, the inventor's recipe, just pour water just up to that one. He rolls this as 1 serving, 2 serving, 3 serving, 4 serving, which would correlate to 1 scoop, 2 scoop, 3 scoop, 4 scoop. There we are. Keep that in mind. All right. I'm just going to put this all here. I'm going to grab my water, and I will just add water. Oop, a little bit too much in there, that's okay. Paddle, and just give it a good vigorous stirring. And then Adler recommends going straight in to the press. And I like watching him do it because he just rests his arms on there like that and just presses it down. That's fine, that's cool. I'm hands-on, so I just do my hands like this. Brennan asks if I do the middle of the number when I do them. Yeah, if I'm doing like, well, Yes, you would. If you're going 2, 3, 4, go to the middle. The 1, go to the top of. But I don't really brew this way. All right, it's hissing. It's forcing water through there. You just go ahead and press all the way down, all the way through that filter until the bottom's out. Excellent. Now that is the baseline that Alan Adler goes off of for the standard recipe here. 17 grams of coffee with about 2 ounces of water put through it. That's a pretty intense little brew. The very small grind allows fast flavor extraction, and we have that. And this, nothing wrong with this. This is going to be a fine cup of coffee. Because we were talking about preferences, I want to contrast this, compare it with my preference. So I have my favorite diner mug. I have AeroPress number 2. I have 1, 2, 3 paper filters. We're going to make a Venn diagram with those and then stack them together because it's coming to total agreement, and place that in here. If you only came for the original recipe, thank you for visiting. I'm going to brew my recipe now. Then I'm going to do a little chit chat about the inventor and kind of why he prefers what he does. All right, my 3 filters. So give it that rinse. Now my coffee here, I went ahead and weighed this. This is 19 grams because I have my scale and it's what I like to do. And you could probably see this is much more coarse. This is kind of chunky drip. Pour my water real quick, pardon me. The part that y'all don't get to see is I have this bucket that just holds all my old water and coffee grounds, so it's not too exciting. Filter, or sorry, funnel. 19 grams go in. Just set that aside. I have a timer on my scale. I'm going to start there. Got my stir stick ready. Now I have my roughly the same amount of coffee as the first one, but I'm going to go and fill this up to about the 4, kind of midway in. I don't use a scale for adding my water because the goal of the scale is to get consistency, and using this volumetric measure, I'm always going to get the consistent amount. Now, with this really coarse coffee, it's going to need a couple things. It's going to need some good vigorous stirring, and it's going to need some more time to steep. We have some water dripping through. I want to stop that. So I take my plunger, start to rotate it in with an angle. That way when it finally does seal, it's already a decent bit into the press chamber. And then I'll give a little lift. All right. Now while that sets and steeps, let's go ahead and talk about Alan Adler's preference for coffee. He likes the incredibly dark roasted coffee. From what I've experienced, he prefers things, no, he would really dig our Italian roast. So if you want to try out something real close to his recipe, order up some of that Italian roast that we have, and that'd be pretty close. So, real small, a little bit. The thing with the Italian roast is that you also want to use cooler water. So we drop that water temperature. Darker roasts don't need as much hot water energy to pull their flavors out. That smells so good. So he always advocates lower water temperature. If you're moving into one of our single origins and you're looking at, let's say, our Colombia Las Brisas, or maybe one of our Guatemalas, or some of our Ethiopian coffees, I'm gonna push that heat up a little bit. Not too crazy. We don't want to go really above 200. AeroPress actually does pretty well with cooler water, which is another reason why I love it for camping. All right, we're 2 minutes into this, and I'm gonna go and just take that and just press in. We'll do it Adler style and lean on it. Now he says that if you start to experience resistance, just pause and then start again. Maybe even lift up slightly on the plunger. You don't want to force through. You shouldn't have to use a lot of force for this. Just a nice, even, steady, gentle weight. I heard a hiss. I'm gonna stop for mine the moment I hear the hiss, because I don't want to force any of the fine particles through. So the big difference here, I need to get more of these little beakers so we can compare and contrast properly. I end up with about 8 ounces of filtered coffee here compared to more 2 ounces. These both have roughly the same amount of flavor components in them. His is going to be much stronger, much more intense. Not quite espresso, but moving towards those concentrations. The kind of thing that if you heated some milk at home, you could mix milk with that and make yourself a functional latte. My preference is toward more open, lower intensity flavor coffees. So with mine, I go a step farther, and I will just top off my mug, which is another reason I don't use scales, because that's all the water it's going to take. It's a good cup of coffee. This here. That's intense. And Brendan, you're a step ahead of me. Brendan asks, does the original recipe assume you're going to dilute it? Yes. Some people drink it straight. But one of the things you can do with that is you can take that then, and similarly, we can dilute down. The little bit that I sipped out, I don't want to dilute much beyond an 8-ounce cup of coffee. So here we have original recipe, diluted down. Then my recipe. They both are a fine cup of coffee. If you like it really fast and don't want to take a lot of time brewing, you can get in and out in under a minute with the AeroPress if you're using the original recipe. Some questions floating out there. People are asking about ratios. I'm just gonna sit up here and we'll have a little coffee talk. So I'm still using my 19 grams coffee in my mug. So that's gonna put me close to that, that 1 to 16, 1 to 17 ratio of total water, but not necessarily brewed water, because what went into the press is going to make that a tighter ratio, because I used a little bit less water to brew with. It's the kind of thing that I let myself get a little bit lazy with, and as far as not knowing the specific numbers, because I know it turns out deliciously. 19 grams of coffee for most brewers is the magic number for a 10-ounce diner mug. 17 grams of coffee went in here. Another reason why I don't really want to push it much beyond 8, just because I know it'll kind of make it a little bit weaker than I like it. Yeah, it's cool, it's good. So again, AeroPress is a super and incredibly versatile brewer. Even though this is a weaker and more watered down, I've added more straight water to it. It has more body because it got more of the fine particles. That was from plunging all the way through and compressing all of the grounds and then forcing some particles past the filter. Also, only using one filter made that a lot easier to do. With my brew, 3 filters, a lot thicker. It's going to absorb more of those fines, more of the oils. And stopping at the hiss, I've eliminated any body that would, nothing contributes to the body as a result of like fine particles of coffee, oils, and lipids, things of that nature. Yeah, and oftentimes Brendan's making a note that adding a little bit of water after the fact can boost the perceived sweetness. That's definitely a method. Typically, when coffee tastes really bitter, one of the first things I look at is, was it brewed too strong? Do we not have enough water in that mix? And if you're drinking coffee that had too many scoops of grounds popped in there, it's going to perceive much more bitter. Yeah, a little bit of water can open it up, reduce that intensity. It's just the super intense flavoring that we then perceive an extreme bitterness. And let's think about how intense of a flavoring component coffee is. When we're drinking a cup of coffee, it's mostly water. We've talked about that before, and you probably hear people say, that coffee is 98% water. We tend to like coffee as Americans and expatriates. We tend to like coffee hitting right around 1.15% coffee flavoring for a week, and then up to about 1.35%. So we're looking at 0.2% in concentration. And the difference between a 1.15 and a 1.35 intensity coffee is incredibly noticeable. If you went up to 1.5% coffee flavoring in your water, it would be too intense to really enjoy for most people. Certain coffees might fit and certain palates would appreciate it. But for the vast majority of us, for the mean average, 1.35 is kind of our max. So adding a little bit of water to that is going to reduce the perceived bitterness and, with well-brewed coffee, improve the perceived sweetness. Well, happy Monday, everybody. Visit batdorfcoffee.com. Get yourself some AeroPress. It'd be kind of fun to get yourself an AeroPress and then get some Italian roast, and then pick out one of our nice single origins, and yeah, play around with it. It's a really fun little brewer machine. It has a bunch of extra parts. Some people don't like dealing with the parts, but once you've done it a few times, it gets pretty simple. Confession. When I got my first AeroPress, this was, 2007 maybe, thereabouts, 2006. I used it a few times and it just kind of sat in the counter. And I pulled it out every once in a while, but it really sat in the cabinet for most of the time. And then I entered a competition, started playing with it, really kind of fell in love with like how diverse it could be. Started to explore it a lot more, and I take it with me pretty much everywhere I go. All right, it's good to see everybody this morning. Thank you all for visiting. I'm gonna sit and I've got 2 cups of coffee to enjoy. I got some work to do, so I'm gonna go do that and sip on my 2 Columbias. Bye now.